Hey Wes, well good morning. I'm sitting here and I'm going over my notes. We're about to have a staff meeting and begin our work for Easter. And so I just thought I'd share with you some of the things that we do to really maximize on Easter and help you out in that way. You got about a month to go, so the Lord's going to bless it and do great things with it, but we need to be prepared. And so these are some of the things we do. Number one, make sure that you always emphasize the vision of whatever it is you're doing. It would be very easy in an established church to just assume people know, well, this is the resurrection, this is what we do, and they do that. But I guarantee you over time they start to think about Easter more about potluck or pot roast and family get-togethers, those type of things. And we've got to bring them back to, man, those are nice additions to what God has done on Easter, which is the resurrection, that people can get saved. And the resurrection of the dead is the highlight of Christianity. This is how we are saved. And so for us this year, our vision statement is out of 1 Corinthians 15:22, and it's all made alive in Christ. And so we're emphasizing that all people and your friends, no matter how bad they are, can be made alive in Christ. And so it's exciting for us who are already in River Valley, because we're going to get to see dead people come alive in Christ. And so that's our emphasis this year. That's what we're doing. We'll talk about that in several sermons leading up to that, as far as guest invitations and bringing your friends and being focused on that, focused on guests, those type of things. That this is our opportunity to present the salvation of Jesus Christ and the resurrection. So vision is always important, and keep that in front of people. Even an event like Easter or Christmas that you have every year, you've got to help them understand this is a special day for us as believers, but also a critical day strategically for us as a church to really move the ball forward in winning the world to Jesus Christ. So make sure and emphasize that. Number two, think about momentum and creating momentum on any big days. It would be very easy for you to enjoy the momentum that was created in past generations, and you could probably ride that out your entire ministry at Broadview. The problem is the next guy would oversee the funeral of Broadview. So you've got to learn how to create momentum within the events and things that are already happening. So momentum is created through change, anything new or different. Andy Stanley says momentum is new, improved, or improving. Anything that is different, exciting, new creates momentum. Now, for a guest, everything's going to be new. But we're talking about right now momentum creation for the insiders, for those who are already believers in Broadview. So they need to see, they need to feel new within even that day. So what we do is anything that we're going to do that's a strategic change, we always say for big days. So if we're moving service times, we're adding a service, anything like that, anything that we're going to buy that's going to look nice, we try to hold those off for big days so people come in and see, oh, a new banner, oh, anything like that, new toys in the children's area. We put all of those together and we do those on big days, so it creates momentum. Also, we do new bulletins, always new covers, so they look nice. We do mailers for Easter. We any of the signs that we have, we'll have signs out front for Easter, and so we'll just make sure that those are new. People see those and are like, oh, that's new, and it just creates momentum. Remember to use social media, email, Facebook, Twitter, all of those things for logos and everything, so that people see this one strategic push towards that thing. Everything that happens that's new and exciting creates momentum for the people that are already there, and that translates into more momentum for the new guests, because they're like, wow, people are excited here, people are energetic, as opposed to just, oh, we know exactly what Easter is like at Broadview. They're like, oh, that's new, that's different, that's cool. So it really does. It really creates momentum that you can ride for the next season until the next big event, and then you do it again, and you really, over time, have people coming exciting, knowing something's going to be great on this day when you do those on the big days. Don't forget to create momentum within the service itself. You need to sit down with your planning team, service planning team, Brian, those type of guys, and everything from the welcome to the offering and announcements, all that needs to be seamless and good. They need to see a really, really quality in that. add anything that you can to create that. I tell Philip all the time, especially on these big days, this is not time to mourn the death of Jesus on Good Friday. This is time to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus on Easter. So, it's going to be high energy, lots of fun. Starting out, we will make sure that all the announcements, the videos, if you can add videos, little epic videos in the service to start it out or to pop it, it really people like that and really respond well to those. So, make sure and do everything that you can to create momentum for that day. Number 3, so you got vision, momentum. Number 3, make sure that your guest focused on that day. Most people will come to Broadview, even the casual attenders, they'll know exactly what to do. Not a big deal. But guests don't. And it will be very easy for those on the inside to think, oh, there were guests and all that. But guests feel weird, especially when they go and there's so many people like are on Easter and they don't know what to do. That is a very uncomfortable feeling. So you've got to be guest focused. You've got to have people that are there that are ready, a very clear signage on where guests go first so they can get help. Make sure your guests in that area, your people that attend to the guests, make sure they are focused on that. Do not catch up with your buddy this day. This is for guests. If you're going to do this, you're guest focused. So they get them, introduce themselves, they walk them to wherever they need to be, including like the hospitality area, coffee before service, those type of things. Really makes it, their service to them makes a huge difference on Easter, where they're like, wow, they were really kind, they were really helpful, they walked me, they didn't just point me, they set me down, those type of things. Then tell your guest people, once they seat them or whatever, and they leave, then they go and they find a buddy that kind of looks like he would be about the same age or something like that with that person. They grab him and they say, hey, that's a guest, go talk to him. And so it just seems like, wow, this church is really friendly, which it is. But at the size of yours, it has to have a system of friendliness. You just can't rely on it just happening. It's too big. It's too confusing. So you have to have a system for that. Make sure you have a guest system, especially on that day. It really will add a lot of pop. Make sure that they see that in everything they do. So on the guests, or excuse me, on the service as well, we always try to add a series or start a series on those days. Make sure and reel them in with that, so you're not ending up something, but you're starting something. I really don't preach out of resurrection texts for Easter because people who come only once a year have heard that text a bunch. So make sure and emphasize the resurrection is a big part of my sermon, but I pull it out of other places. One year I started Malachi on Easter. So the gospel is found within wherever, within everywhere in the Bible. So I always start a new series, and then you can reel them in and say, now come back next week and we'll see how this ends up or what happens here. Those type of things, especially story texts, history books that you're like, well, let's come back. For me, it'll be, let's come back next week and we'll hear what happens to Gideon. So we're going to talk about judges and warriors, and so that's a helpful idea for you to them. Remember to be very application oriented, even if it should be in salvation, but help them understand this is what you should do with what you've heard. Even in a church with a altar call, you need to do that. More and more people are coming from mainline denominations. They don't know what an altar call is. If you're going to have a come forward altar call, explain it. Help them understand this is what happens. This is why we do this. You're going to have to take a couple minutes to do that, or else it will just be a foreign concept to them. So make sure and walk them through on the application, whatever it is you want them to do. Really and truly, people will do it, but you have to explain it clearly. You have to have it easy and accessible for them to do that. Number 4, I believe, make sure your team leaders, everyone who's running the different ministries with a vision, make sure that they're ready for that day. What we do is each staff member has certain team members that they're assigned to, like hospitality, guests, greeters, children's check-in, all those things. And so whichever staff member, he is in charge of writing out the expectations of what that day should look like and the flow and everything that you would want them to know. and then they email it to them, and then they call them and they say, now that you got this email, let's walk through it together and let's talk about it. And so make sure that they're here early, make sure that they're ready and prepared, and they just walk through it line by line what they're supposed to do. And then they hand it off in that way so that team leader can do the very same thing with all of his or her people that they're leading. So you gotta really walk them through that. You can't on that day. You're too busy. You're up on stage or you're talking with people, those type of things. So make sure they are ready beforehand, and they'll really do an exceptional job if you'll get them early and make sure that they understand. Last thing is follow up. Make sure. And even as simple as emails, thanking them and re-inviting them and helping them understand what it looks like to come back to church on a regular basis, that is really important. Those type of things are critical. So do those things, and you really and truly will maximize Easter and your other big days over time. Make sure the vision, make sure momentum, make sure you are guest focused. Those type of issues, really over the long period of time, your church will start to get used to it, and you'll see these big pops. We stopped growing about in the second year. We were growing really steadily, almost like 5 to 10 a month, and it was cool. And all of a sudden, we stopped growing. And what we saw was we would grow on a big day, then kind of plateau out and assimilate, grow on a big day, plateau and assimilate. And so you have to learn how to use these big days strategically. Christmas and Easter, the biggest big days, man. You got to get after them and use them well for the gospel to be in people's hearts. So use it well. You're going to do a great job, and I'm excited to hear what happens at Broadview. We will talk to you later.